The economy is suffering as a result of the coronavirus, and Donald Trump's Oval Office address didn't make the situation better. That's where he announced a travel ban from European countries. Now, that led to the stock market taking a giant plunge. I want to give you some of those numbers right now. The Dow Jones Industrial Average traded 1,991 points lower, or 8.5%. The index was on pace for its worst drop since the 1987 market crash, when it collapsed by more than 22%. The S&P 500 traded down 8%, joining the Dow in a bear market, and the Nasdaq Composite traded 7.9% lower. Now, things made investors uncomfortable, right? So their money's invested here, and it's interesting to see the reaction from our government when wealthy people are disturbed by something versus when, average Americans are dying because they don't have access to healthcare. And so the New York Federal Reserve actually pumped some money into the stock markets to the tune of $1.5 trillion. We'll get back to that in just a second, but more details on what's happening to the stock market. On Wednesday, for instance, the Dow ended its historic 11-year bull market run by closing its bear market territory. A bear market marks 20% decline from all-time highs. Now the S&P 500 is in one, down more than 25% from its record high. And so I think this is really interesting, and I didn't really know that this happened until coronavirus started impacting the stock market. Basically what happens is when the market starts taking a giant nosedive, right? They put a halt on all trading. Yeah. And I mean, it's like for all those free market guys out there, I'm sure they love that little, they call it like a circuit break, right?
Yeah.
Circuit breaker. So isn't that like the government getting involved in the markets and stopping something? Like, why don't you just let the free market do what the free market's supposed to do, right? Why do you need these like little band-aids and these little like gimmicks to kind of help out? Now look, I get it. There are average Americans, good people, hardworking people who are invested in the stock markets. They have their retirement accounts. It's impacted by this. And so there needs to be some relief in that regard. But immediately, $1.5 trillion out of thin air, and they're doing it to loan money to companies in a cheap fashion. Like that's the whole point.
Yeah, how are you gonna pay for that? So first of all, we need the circuit breakers because, especially in these days, because there's so many computer programs that do the trading. And once you get into a vicious cycle of selling, the programs kick into high gear and they sell more and more and more. So there's a lot of other technical reasons why you need it. I think it's a good idea. Anna's making the point that we think it's a good idea, but the right wing told us that you don't need any protections.
You don't need any regulations, right. Exactly. That's the only reason why I'm bringing it up, because it's meant to mitigate what's going on in the stock market and try to figure out, whether there is an issue with computers or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean.
So now also on the things that we need. We do need help for the businesses. That actually is true. So now folks are not going to public places anymore. So you name it, they're in big trouble. So the cruise ships stocks are way down. Most understandable thing in the world. I think Norwegian Cruise Lines earlier today laid off 50% of their staff. So those folks need help. And then the airlines, way down, understandable. I'm not taking flights. We canceled all flights at TYT. We canceled an event we were gonna do in DC. So then the hotels are hurt. And you go down the list, those are all true.
Every industry has been impacted. In fact, even a lot of times people will move their money to commodities when this type of stuff happens, and commodities are down.
No, when you get into a vicious cycle with the economy and with the stock market, it's so hard to recover. This one is so bizarre that even gold is down. Because normally when the stocks start going down, gold goes up because it's safer. In this case, it's the perfect storm. Even gold is going down. So it is true that the businesses need help. And the $1.5 trillion from the Fed does not go straight into the stock market. It is for the banks to have liquidity. And so the banks will lend out to the other businesses. Now, the part they're not telling you is that the banks have made a lot of bets on loans that they have given to other companies. When those companies' revenue and profits are drying up, they're having trouble paying back the banks. So the banks are hurt by that, but they're also hurt by the derivatives bets that they have that those loans will get paid back. All of a sudden, here we go again, like 2008, dominoes. And so that is why the Fed is panicking. It's not a little thing, it's $1.5 trillion. So basically they're saying, don't worry about the bets, don't worry about the bets. Everybody's gonna pay it back, don't worry, don't worry. And if you need money, we're just literally going to print it and give it to you. Now, I understand why they're worried, but that's why we told you to do tougher regulations on the banks. Don't let them over leverage, don't let them do these derivatives. And we said the Obama reforms, the Dodd-Frank reforms of Wall Street were way too weak. Guess what? We were right. Now the Fed, panicking with $1.5 trillion, is basically saying, yeah, they were right. Those reforms were not nearly enough. The regulations were not enough on the big banks. And so here we go again with dominoes.
Yes, exactly. And I wanted to clarify something that you referenced earlier. So Norwegian Airlines does plan to furlough 50% of its employees.
Sorry, Norwegian Airlines, thank you for that correction.
Yeah, so I wanted to give, and by the way, the airlines are certainly over leveraged as well. So they were not in a good position to begin with. And then this coronavirus issue really blew the situation up.
And the thing that precipitated that was, you had all these issues to begin with, but then when Donald Trump said, we're not letting people come from Europe, that's when they had to furlough the 50% of their staff.
So I also want to talk a little bit about what's happening to the average American, right? Economically, and what kind of solutions have been proposed by Congress. Because as we know, we have the House of Representatives that's dominated by Democrats, and then you have the Senate that's dominated by Republicans who are blocking bills that would provide some relief to Americans who are suffering economically. First off, if you go to a grocery store, it's likely to look like this. And this is a picture that my partner took when he went grocery shopping this morning. So people are panicking. There is a shortage of goods, as you can see from those shelves. Also, some of these grocery stores are implementing limits to what people can buy. That was a note that he took a photo of. It says, due to the high demand and support all customers, we are limiting the number of sanitization, cold and flu related products, multi-packs of water, wipes and cleaning supplies and paper products to 5 per customer because everyone's running out of things. And then the lines to the grocery stores are incredibly long. So what Congress is doing would provide some relief, but unfortunately the Senate is blocking it. The House Democrats introduced emergency legislation to help reduce the economic impact of the coronavirus outbreak by providing financial backing to most immediately affected, including an expansion of paid sick leave and unemployment benefits. The legislation also looks to bolster unemployment insurance, guarantee free coronavirus testing, and expand federal food assistance for low-income families and children. The bill also provides $500 million for the special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children to provide food assistance for low-income mothers who could lose jobs due to the coronavirus. So I want to just quickly note that Republicans, like Senator Lamar Alexander, have blocked this bill because the bill would provide paid sick leave, and Lamar Alexander believes that the government should stay out of it and allow the employer to decide whether or not they offer this benefit to people who are suffering right now.
And he's saying, don't put the costs on to the employers, the poor corporate donors of mine. I mean, the employers I'm concerned about. If we're gonna do it, the federal government should do it. Wait, isn't that socialism, Lamar Alexander? Anyway, so to review, in this case, Nancy Pelosi and the House Democratic leadership are doing the right thing. They're saying, hey, we gotta actually look out for the actual average American citizen as well. And the Republicans are saying, no, we love that the Fed just gave $1.5 trillion to the banks, but we do not want to help the average American. If they get sick and they don't get paid sick leave at work, too bad.
They're actually worse than that. And just to show you how craven they are, Republicans have been trying to gut Social Security for as long as we can remember. And what they're trying to do is exploit this pandemic to do payroll tax cuts. Payroll tax is what helps to fund Social Security. And so Democrats in Congress are like, no, this is a non-starter. We're not touching payroll taxes. And Republicans are like, all right, well, we're gonna block everything else. We want to provide relief to the employers here because the employers pay the payroll tax, right?
We pay it too, but it's a nonsensical thing. It could be used as a stimulus for the economy, but this is not the right time for it. No, you need stimulus that directly addresses the concerns that arise out of the pandemic. So that's why paid family sick leave makes sense. That's why unemployment insurance makes sense as all these folks are being laid off. Just giving giant tax cuts to corporations indiscriminately or even to the workers is not getting to is not focused enough. It's not getting to the direct needs. In fact, today Jim Cramer on CNBC proposed stopping all taxes, period.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Because they're so obsessed with the health of corporations as opposed to the health of the average American citizen. So I just told you earlier, the health of those companies is relevant for the small business and even the big businesses. Because yes, they employ people, et cetera. That is certainly true. But the health of everyone else is also important. And for the Republicans, they're like, don't give a damn, okay? Whatever the corporations need, but when it comes to citizens, you don't get me elected. I get millions of dollars from my corporate donors. They get me elected. You guys are irrelevant to us. And they're proving it spectacularly in the middle of this pandemic. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.